Hello, and welcome to the 11th day of your quest. Today, our topic is balance and the challenges I'm going to place before you in your assignments later on may be among the toughest that this program has invited you to take so far. So, get ready, because you may be surprised to find how difficult it is to complete these assignments. That's because for many people, it's become rare to bring a true sense of balance to life. The result is that they've lost touch with their innermost self, their true self, and with some of the real joys of life. The guiding statement for today is the 9th of the 16 differences between the behaviors of highly evolved beings and those who are moving through life at a lower level of consciousness. An awakened species creates a balance between technology and cosmology, between machines and nature. Humans in an unawakened state often do not. Now, this may not seem like a very big deal in the overall scheme of things, but it actually has more impact on your quality of life than you may realize. The question of balance in your life affects your health, your relationships, your job performance, your income, your sense of inner peace, and, throwing all of that together, your happiness. We like to think that today's modern technologies have brought great improvements to our lives. And of course, in many ways they have. But in many other ways, they can rob us of our personhood if we're not careful. By personhood, I mean the total experience of who you are, all the small pleasures of the body and sweet expansions of the mind that build upon one another and add to the ultimate composition of a relaxed yet productive, tranquil yet energetic, focused yet well-rounded self. Modern technology can bring us closer to God by making us more like gods, putting more control, more capability, more power in our hands, literally in the palm of our hands, than we could ever have dreamed of 25 years ago. Yet in some surprising ways, these new capabilities have rendered us incapable of relying upon ourselves to perform basic functions and supply ourselves with simple delights that equip us with the poise and equilibrium that we need to meet life's most hectic moments. It can start to feel as if every moment is a hectic moment if we don't guard against technology inadvertently affecting the cosmology and the psychology of our lives. On a recent Sunday, my wife and I did something striking in its simplicity. At her suggestion, by the way, I find that wives are almost always the ones who suggest stuff like this. We piled a couple of folding chairs and a cooler stocked with sandwiches, sodas, and potato chips and drove off to the wonderful public park that graces the center of our town. There, we found an expansive lawn, lush green lawn, parked ourselves under the shade of a huge oak tree, unwrapped our sandwiches, and had a wonderful little picnic, talking quietly with each other about nothing important for a change. Just remarking on the splendor of the sun dappling the landscape before us, and of the sweet chirping of birds all around. And when we'd finished eating, do you know what I did? I took out a book and sat there in the sun for over an hour reading it. I mean, I actually held a book in my hand, not a screen or a device. I read off of the pages of the book, pages that were made of paper. You know, paper that I turned, that I could smell. Is there anything nicer to a bibliophile than book pages you could smell? But I have a more interesting question. When do you think the last time was that I spent a whole Sunday afternoon in the park quietly reading a book? Try 20 years ago. I mean, it's been 20 years since I sat in a park doing nothing but reading a book. See, because I'm busy. Hey, I'm busy. Yes, even busy on a Sunday. You know how it is. The computer calls, the cell phone dings, There are emails to be opened, texts to be read, website pages to be updated, entries to be posted, projects to be moved forward, data to be gathered. Yes, even on a Sunday. Time waits for no man. A few years ago, I had no laptop glued to my legs. Years before that, I didn't even have a computer on my desk. Can you imagine that? There wasn't a computer in the entire house a few years ago. Business communications came in the mail. Mail is that stuff that's delivered by hand. It comes all the way from the person sending it to the person receiving it, delivered by hand. Can you imagine that? And since the mail was not delivered at our house on a Sunday, there were no communications, no business letters that had to be answered that came in until Monday. That meant I could have the whole Sunday off. Oh my gosh. The other day, I thought I would have the whole day off, and my wife came to me in the house and she said, I dare you not to open your computer once today. Wow. But that's not the only pleasure from my past, I mean a whole Sunday off, that today's technology has robbed me of. You know, I remember from the days of my youth, the pleasures of putting my hands in warm water and actually washing the dishes. I recall cutting the grass with a mower that I pushed under my own power, which meant that I'd be outside 2 or 3 times as long. Imagine being out of doors and smelling the fragrance of freshly cut grass instead of kerosene. And speaking of the outdoors and the wonderful smells, can anyone remember what it smelled like to put a shirt on your body or place your head on a pillowcase fresh from the clothesline outside? I mean, a shirt that was dried by wind and sun? I'm an old person, so I can remember these things. But today, if you want to have that experience, you have to put a sheet. It's a sheet with artificial fragrance that they place in it to pretend that the laundry was dried outside. The sweet balance in those days was part of my life, when not everything was done indoors and by machines. What I have observed over the past 60 years of my life is that, in my experience, there's a direct connection between the technologies now available to us, as well as the newer and newer and newer technologies that crop up every hour of every day, becoming available to us. A connection between that and the quality of our lives. And that connection is not always a positive one. Every aspect of our lives, physically, emotionally, psychologically, socially, and spiritually, is touched by this technology that's all around us. One of the biggest challenges we're facing as an emerging civilization is the bringing of our philosophies, beliefs, and understandings about the world and our decisions about who we are up to speed with our technology. The advancements in our weaponry have allowed us to strike targets, both concrete and human, with drones remotely controlled thousands of miles away, or explosives able to be hidden in laptop computers on sheets as thin as paper and carried aboard an airplane. Those technologies have the potential of removing humans so far from the sights and sounds of death that they almost see battle and war in the way we once saw video games as a child. And if you think that does nothing to have an impact on the psychology behind decisions that kill people, think again. Our genetic altering of crops in ways that increase the speed of their growth and the volume of their yield has the potential of removing humans so far from the source and process by which nature intended to produce and provide nutrition naturally, that our food is becoming less and less organic, more and more processed, less and less wholesome, more and more additive laden, less and less pure, and more artificial. And if you think that does not have a psychological impact on the healthfulness or a physiological impact as well of the healthfulness of what we're putting into our bodies, think again. Our cloning of animals, and within a generation or less of the first human, has the potential of removing humans so far from the moral underpinnings that guided the reproductive decisions of our species for millennia, that our world of tomorrow is threatening to look like a science fiction nightmare. And if you think that does not have an impact on the spiritual underpinnings of the next generation, think again. Look, it's becoming more and more clear every moment that there must be some melding of, that we would benefit from some integration of, producing a balance between technology and cosmology, between machines and what they're capable of producing and what nature produces all by itself. The additional impact in our world of instantaneous global communication, the use of social media to freely spread ideologies of intolerance and to even plant the seeds of hatred and terrorism, the undeniable impact of all the latest life extension medicine, all of these realities, every one of them, leave us ill-equipped to deal with the ethical, moral, and spiritual dilemmas that our old beliefs and standards and guidelines have left us unable to resolve. You see what we're trying to do? We're trying to take our guidelines and our standards from 20 and 30 and 40 years ago and overlay them on our society today, a society that's been so radically altered by technology that we can't keep up in terms of our moral understandings and our societal guidelines with what we are able to do. Our technologies have placed the information of the world at our fingertips, but left cashiers unable to make change without a calculator. Our technologies have given us access to all the numbers of Einstein's equation, but left us unable to remember the phone numbers of our own family. Our technologies have given us the ability to do more work in 1 hour than we used to do in 1 day, and accomplish more in 2 weeks than we used to accomplish in 2 months. There's no question that our productivity has increased, but we must ensure that we have not decreased our humanity. Remember when a long plane ride gave us a chance to read a couple of feature articles in a wonderful magazine, or maybe catch a really good movie that we missed when it came through town because we were just able to do that on the airplane? Remember that? Well, now there's talk of banning laptops in airplane cabins on overseas flights. And now that that's being discussed, everybody panics. Corporations testify before Congress on the economic impact of how much productivity will be lost. Remember when you left your house or office and how you got away from the telephone for 20 minutes or for a blessed hour at lunch? Now, if you don't answer your cell phone or at least respond to a text instantly, the only acceptable excuse is that you were in the washroom. Where will this all end? How much of our quality of life will we allow our technology to take from us? Well, in your life, that's up to you. But this quest offers this. Let us not confuse accomplishment with enrichment, achievement with fulfillment, and what we are doing with what we are being. Sound good? So here's today's assignment. And again, a little warning. It may not be easy. Number 1, stop using modern technologies, microwaves, dishwashers, cable television, DVDs, computers, cell phones. Stop using all of those technologies for 1 full weekend every other month. Use this deprivation to invite yourself to return to a way of life in which you feel more connected to yourself and to each other. Number 2, decide to have one highly personal communication each day and one truly significant and meaningful conversation each week with your most significant other. Number 3, commit to reading one book dealing with spiritual, philosophic, or social issues each month for the next year. Let it be a book that you hold in your hand and read off of paper, not off of a screen. Number 4, on this day, squeeze a blade of grass between your fingers and rub it until its juice permeates your skin. Smell the fragrance of its nectar. Then touch the bark of a tree. And finally, look into another person's eyes for 10 seconds. Dare you. Look into another person's eyes for 10 seconds. Don't look away. Don't talk. And make a note in your awakening journal of any difference you feel between this 10-second experience and looking at your computer screen for 10 minutes. Here's the challenge. Don't think about these things. Don't just think about these things. Oh, interesting assignment. Actually do them. Dare you. And I'll see you tomorrow.